What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the MindShare podcast. This show is sponsored by Kits Keep in Touch Systems and REM Real Estate Magazine. Learn more about our sponsors by visiting my site, mindshare101.com. And while you're there, be sure to download your free copy of my book, The Ultimate Marketing Bundle, as well as learn more about our one-to-one coaching and keynote speaking. Today's episode is number 262. She is a kinesiologist, certified sleep science coach, and health consultant who helps entrepreneurs double their energy and focus so they can make more money in their business. She works closely with business owners to eliminate brain fog and wake up well-rested so they can get more done in less time, maintain consistent, stable energy throughout the day, and feel better than they have in years. She is also the host of the Becoming Limitless Podcast, sharing her expertise on optimizing health and focus for business success. Joining me on this episode of the MindShare podcast to discuss the 12 protocols to becoming limitless so you can double your money and your energy is health consultant Tanessa Shears. Tanessa?
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome to the MindShare podcast. It is going. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Ready to bring energy today.
Oh my God, it's going to be amazing. I'm excited about this conversation, actually. And listen, I got to admit something. In reading your bio and learning about what your professional skill set is, I got to tell you, I am a little bit worried.
Tell me why.
You're a certified sleep science coach. In fact, maybe I shouldn't be worried as much as I'm excited. But seriously, if I see like 5 hours on my alarm clock when I go to lay my head down at night, like I get excited. Like I'm satisfied that I'm getting enough rest. Now, just before you tear me apart over here, publicly, okay? I do operate at a very high frequency. I often say that I get more done in a day than most people do in a week. And I challenge everybody who just heard me say that, and you've heard me say it before. And I challenge you all. I challenge you. Let's go. But seriously, I say it like I'm just built differently. I don't know. But I also know there's some days where, like, seriously speaking, all jokes aside, I feel completely exhausted. I do feel anxious about how much needs to get done. And I will say this too, that much the same if I do get 8 hours of sleep or more, I feel exhausted. Like I'm at the point where I feel like I completely overslept. Now, I know your mind is wheeling right now. I know you probably got a lot to say, but like, is getting a proper night's rest really that important? And how would you define a proper night's rest?
Yeah. So a lot of the time when we think about what is a proper night of rest, we're thinking of like that, like really boring advice about 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, right? That's what we think. But there's stuff that goes on while you sleep to your brain that makes it show up at a whole new level. So for example, REM sleep, when you dream. We want to aim for 90 minutes minimum per night because REM sleep is tied to so many of the things that make us high performing professionals. So for example, REM sleep has been shown to help with emotional control. So if you ever struggle with short-term thinking or being able to think long-term and you always are like in the now and the emotions of it and everything like that, like having enough REM sleep fosters your ability to maintain emotional control. Another really cool thing, studies have shown that if you get enough REM sleep, your ability to read facial expressions and body gestures skyrockets. Now think about this. You're in a sales role. You're on a sales call. You're with a client. How important is your ability to read their facial expressions, to know if you said something and now they're kind of leaning back a little bit? I want to be able to compute that stuff while I'm here answering their questions, making sure that they're seeing the value in it. And I want my brain to be doing that in the background. And my ability to do that for me as a consultant and coach, that makes me better at my job. I need to know, okay, do I need to explain that different? That didn't connect. So my brain is watching for that. And then the final thing, for an example, that REM sleep does is it makes us out of the box thinkers and better problem solvers. Your ability to solve problems will directly line up with your success. And so I'm looking at emotional control, reading my clients better, and our ability to solve problems. Like, yes, sign me up. And that's just one component of why sleep is so great.
Whew. Okay, well, thank you. That was like drinking through a fire hose in the past 30 seconds. Okay, what I think, never mind everything that I just digested there, but you said you need at least 90 minutes of REM sleep per night to be able to do what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's an on-off switch, it's a continuum. But we find at 90 minutes, that's when you really start to feel those benefits on a regular basis. And if you're waking up feeling irritated, grumpy, you can guarantee that your REM sleep was the part of your sleep that took a hit last night.
So we're not saying I just need 90 minutes of sleep, like, but seriously, how much sleep do I need though to get into REM then? Is
But
there a number there? Is there an hour? Like, how do we know we did that?
yeah, so my favorite way is wearing wearable technology. Like I'm wearing a ring right now called an Aura ring. And this ring, gosh, if you think a Fitbit or an Apple Watch gives you data, this is it like 10x. And so I'm always looking at this and finding out what exactly can I implement to make sure I'm getting enough REM sleep. And when it comes down to answering your question, how long do we sleep?
Right.
Well, that is going to be different for everyone. Now, there are some people, I think it's like 0.004% of the population can actually achieve this on 6 hours or less per night. It's actually a genetic mutation that allows that, which is kind of cool. But the average person, I mean, keep in mind
Would
this,
you say six? What was it?
yeah, it's a 0.004% of the population has the genetic mutation to get the enough quality sleep on 6 hours or less.
So are you suggesting that I may not be part of that percentage?
It's possible. You would have to be, you have to look, and that's why I think there's no ever one strategy for everything. But I look at a lot of entrepreneurial data because I equip my client with these rings. I read the data. I make database decisions. And because of that, I'm able to see like, okay, well, yeah, you're feeling frustrated during the day. You're overwhelmed. Okay, here's why. Let's target in here instead of wasting time on all these health habits that may not even be impacting how you're showing up.
Interesting. So again, there's not a specific amount of time that I need to sleep in a night to get into REM.
No, but the cool thing is if you look at kind of how we call it the sleep architecture, meaning how your sleep is architectured throughout the night. So in the
Mhm.
beginning of the night, you get the majority of deep sleep. You can get a bit of dream, but the majority of it, deep sleep, happens in the beginning. REM sleep happens mostly at the end of the night. So if you ever wear any kind of wearable technology and you get a little graph, you'll notice that most of the dreaming happens 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. So that's why that time is so important to protect. And unfortunately, that's when a lot of us are waking up, staring at the ceiling, stressing out, going over our to-do list, can't get back to sleep. And that's what really starts interrupting REM sleep.
I'll tell you, my days are slammed. Like
Mm.
my to-dos are through the roof. People get overwhelmed when there's no way you get that much done. Yeah, no, I do. Um, but I make sure that at the top of my day and the end of my day, I spend a lot of time with my family.
Mm.
So I make sure that like I start off with my kids in the morning and my wife's going through her routine and then in the evening her once the kids go to bed it's our time to hang out together. Um, but then when it's all done, I still need like me time, right? And like outside of sports and whatever else, I need to veg out for a bit so I can decompress. And my decompression usually begins at around the 11 p.m. mark. That's like once again, kids are sleeping. My wife and I have gone through like our little routine of just hanging out or chit chatting or catching up on the day, and then sometime around like 1:30 a.m., I realize the TV's been watching me. Now I don't know how long it's been watching me for, but I know it's been watching me, and so it's like, okay, let's go up to bed. Well, I guess maybe on that, like, what are your thoughts about the way time is carved out, the way people, because I think you just said that about that routine and what's leading up to it, and how at
Mhm.
the start of our night we're sleeping deeper, but later on in the night we're actually having, or in the morning, maybe in the morning hours, we're having that REM, those dreams. Again, what's your thought around the way I guess people carve out their time in the evenings and maybe their own personal time and the importance of like a healthy nighttime routine or even
Mhm.
overall like a daily routine?
Yeah, it's interesting. Going on to what you said about that me time, that's honestly one of the biggest things I get the pushback on is like, okay, well, let's think about your sleep here. And they're like, but that is my me time. Kids are down, like that's my me time.
Yeah.
And what I start to look at in there is like, it's okay. So let's start considering this. Well, how much me time do you need? And it's often like, I'd like a couple hours or something like that. And I'm like, cool. Why do you think you need so much me time? And this is a fun conversation to explore because everyone's answers are a bit different. And one of my favorite like recurring answers that I get is because I just never feel refreshed. I never feel relaxed. I'm like, okay, cool. So this is an example of a conversation I had with a client. I was like, okay, why don't you feel relaxed? And she's like, I don't know. I'm just like watching Netflix the whole time. Well, wouldn't it be interesting if we put some things into your evening routine, which actually made you feel the way you want to feel? Because if we're not doing things that are making us feel recharged, that's why it's so easy to just waste half a day if it's on the weekend or, waste 2-3 hours before bed. It's because we're like aiming for this like me time, downtime, but we get up feeling the same. And it's just kind of like, ugh, like I don't really feel refreshed. And so I'm like, okay, how can we start looking at putting in a little time that gives you the feeling you want to feel? Do you have to give up Netflix? No. But what is it that you're actually after and what would create that feeling? And so in addition to that, what I really start looking at is like in that time before bed, am I cueing my brain properly to wind down so that the sleep I do get is good sleep? Because I think there's a difference between high quality short sleep and low quality short sleep. And a lot of that has to do with the information you're feeding your brain as you're going to sleep in the half hour, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, hour before you go to bed.
See, and I would double down on that. I would say that, for myself and a lot of what I teach my clients to do is first thing in the morning, keep that phone plugged into its charger. Do not touch that thing. You do not need to, pollute your mind with the noise, the outside noise from the social medias, the mainstream medias, the emails, anything of that sort. Really take time for you to sort of let yourself wake up, having a strong routine. And part of that strong routine is to review goals, to have a look at what it is that I'm actually getting up to do every day. What am I working for every day? Why am I going to do this again today? And no matter what comes up in my day, what's driving me to keep going? The perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
Evening time, I would tell you that there's a very similar routine to that in the sense where, and again, this is for me, and this is what I work to teach my clients. And I've seen, fantastic, like just transformational changes in people when they just change up these routines. So I'm with you on this.
Mm-hmm.
But that nighttime routine ends up being, okay, let's review those goals again to see what we did accomplish today. Because I believe that, again, what everything we want in 2024 is not going to happen on January 1st. It's going to be like, minute by minute, 30, 60-minute increments, action by action. And if I can win that day, I can closer for the win in the week and therefore the month and therefore the year. So end of the day, what did we accomplish? Let's look back on that. Let's acknowledge that so that we do say, hey, whether you got the deal or you didn't get the deal or whatever happened, was it successful? Did I work towards my goals? So that's one part of it. The other part of it is scheduling for tomorrow to make sure that, again, tomorrow we're ready to go so that when we do wake up, again, I don't have to worry about the socials and all that stuff. I don't have to worry about checking in with the phone. All I know is that, like, when I'm ready to go, like, I'm ready to go. There's no trying to figure out which way I'm going. Now, then we come to the me time. And for me, that me time literally is, I've done it all. I want to shut down. I want to get off the phone. I don't want to hear from anything, socials, anything like that. And literally, it's just, it's sitting on the couch and it's like, it's watching a show. And that usually starts at about 11:30 for me. So I want that hour, because if I just go to bed, I personally feel like I haven't had time to relax today. So long explanation to that, but I wanted to kind of bring that one. Would you suggest that I should want to adjust this? Why should I want to adjust this? Or if you're in line with what I just shared, bring back maybe the Netflix part of it or the TV part of it. And then is there a reason that anybody should want to adjust, or why should they want to look at their routine?
Yeah. So here's why I love this, what I call the experimenter's mindset. I think sometimes when we think about making change, we're like, oh my gosh, that would flip everything upside down. That's not what I want to be doing. So I am a huge fan of this idea of pick one thing and change it for a week. If you like the experience better, you keep it. If not, no harm done, right? And this is always that idea of that one little experiment at a time. And here's one of the reasons why I always like to look at and keep in mind, like there is the action side of it and there is the science side of it. So my brain is always looking at, okay, the science of it. And so when I work with my clients and I hear things like, okay, I'm watching TV up until bed, the reason I like to invite the idea of experimenting with 30 minutes before bed without the TV is because there's a ton of studies that shown that that blue light into your eyes decreases REM sleep, and not just for one night. It can have what's called a digital hangover effect that can last 3 to 4 nights in decreasing that potent dream sleep that we need. And so the invitation is always just like, cool, what if we put something that was equally mindless? Like for me, that ended up being reading. I've got clients that like to, do sound baths or meditate or stretch or whatever it is. Like there's not a right answer. I think it's always like, what can I experiment this week that might feel better, that I might like better, and not having that attachment to having everything be the thing that worked, right? And then when you find something that does work, you keep it, right? But I always like to play in possibility of like, what haven't I tried? And like, keep in mind, my business is coming up on 10 years this February. So I have seen and tried a lot of things, and I am still finding new things that I'm like, hot damn, everyone needs to know about this. There's a newsletter going out. The podcast is about it. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Experimenter's mindset.
Yeah, I think that what you just mentioned there, actually, I had that conversation with a coaching client this morning, moreover around the whole idea of video and socials and just brand building, marketing conversation, but we're always tinkering and playing with. So I'm with you there. I would throw in and just, again, part of the conversation to that, and what I'm trying to do is get our audience to be thinking, right? I do a lot of reading. It's part of my day every day. So self-development, physical development, big parts of my day, integral to my day. They're part of how I carve out what I'm doing in a day. Because again, we talk about this, work-life balance, right? How do we get that? And then we look at, what does everybody else want in life? And people want more time to enjoy. Well, how can I do that today? Right? So again, to me, and I hear you loud and clear about the blue light. I do. I get that part. I really get the blue light part. But I still, I don't see myself pulling away from like that moment of just laying on the couch, because I've done my reading. I've done my gratitude. I'm just not one to take a candlelit bath with all sorts of stuff in the water.
No. And you know what? Neither am I. And that's the cool thing is I think it's just always like that for me is just the willingness to I like what you said about it being a conversation, because I hate being in an echo chamber and only hearing one way of doing things, right? Because then you never get exposed to other possibilities, right? But I always like to look at like, okay, what if I even kept the things that I'm doing but flipped the order? You know what I mean? So sometimes there's always room. Okay. Like there's just so many ways to play with it.
Are you saying to me that I should just stop in the middle of the day and just start watching Netflix because better off doing it in the middle of the day?
Or what if you did your gratitude and your to-do list wind down after the Netflix? Like there's so many ways you can experiment. And this is why I love data, because for me, there's no emotions. Data doesn't lie. So if let's say you did that experiment for a week and you looked and you're like, heck, I'm getting more REM sleep. And I notice I feel better, or I'm more refreshed, or I don't get those days that feel so drained. Now is it worth it? That's how you get to decide. And at any time you can go back. There's no attachment to it. It's fun, right?
I was just going to ask you that, any tricks to changing the habit? But I guess maybe one of them that you just mentioned there was just flip the routine around. I'm going to tell you, just for conversation's sake, even today, and probably legitimate objection right now, I'm like, well, I've already done the to-do, part of the to-do list for tomorrow, and the gratitude, and all that, that's part of the book end of the day. Yeah. The Netflix thing can't happen early because I got the kids, and I'm going to throw out objections just to challenge for the fun of challenging today. Yeah. But it's like once the kids are done, I've already done all that stuff. Now the kids part is done. They're going to bed. Now it's me and my wife time, and that I don't want to say that part's done. That's our time, but part of that time ends up just being kind of that we're winding down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what if it was just the sentences that you had in your head that made that feel like that was the way to do it? Because here's how I always like to know. If I'm ever thinking no, this is the way it works, I always like to just be like, okay, if I put this routine on 10 other people, would they all agree that this is the best way to do it? And if the answer is no, I just know that it's my brain that has decided this. So at any point, we're going to have that mindset conversation. It's like, okay, what decisions do I have now, which I look at as just facts? This is the way it's done. The bookend goes here. What if that was just my opinion? And if I wanted to try something else, that could also be an opinion that I buy into. So I always just like to look at what are the sentences going on that make that feel so concrete and absolute. And this is it's done and this is closed. And then I go here and this has to be here for the sake of this. I always just love, my favorite thing is poking holes in how people think, and just not to tell them like there's a wrong way to do it and a right way to do it, but I'm like, have you considered this? Because you're in a coaching spot too. People can't see what they genuinely believe. Like I get clients all the time that report things to me like it's the news. They're like, my life is so chaotic and so hectic. I had that conversation with a client this week, and I was like, yeah, but waking up and telling yourself that every day and hanging on to that, how is that working for you? Because as far as I'm concerned, you missed 2 out of your 3 workouts last week. You're getting up half an hour past your alarm clock. You're feeling frantic. You're rushed everywhere. So how is you telling yourself that this is a fact working for you? I love that. You probably find that too. Hey, just like,
you know what, I do find that, and I would say
Yeah.
I agree with you with what you're
Yeah.
saying there. It's definitely my opinion. It's definitely like my way of doing. Is it the right way? Not necessarily at all. And you ask those 10 people, you might get 10 different answers. And in fact, by asking that question, we both know you're going to learn. You're going to learn what other people are doing. You're going to wait a second. That's a good idea.
That's the point, right? It's that just like, oh, and you can always, that's the thing I love is like, you never have to change anything. I always just love what if, right?
Well, what's the downside of not changing anything though?
Yeah, then you never get to grow, right? You never get to stand in discomfort. And I always feel like your life, if you're achieving the things you want in your life, it's a direct reflection of how many decisions you have made for discomfort instead of against them. Against discomfort is like unwinding with alcohol instead of being like, I'm stressed. I should probably maybe go for a walk or work out because this actually, will help me sleep better tonight. This is going to help deal with the stress instead of just hide it away for tomorrow. But I'm like, if I want a great life, I'm going to have to make decisions to be in discomfort on purpose. And so I lean into that all the time. And I'm really bought into this idea, and I didn't make this up. I've learned this, is that I am a genuine believer that life is 50-50. 50% of the time we're experiencing negative emotion and 50% of the time is good emotion. Like if you think about it, no matter how much money you make, no matter how many sales you make, no matter clients you close, does it not feel similar in terms of like crappy days and amazing days and business highs and business lows? And so we kind of psych ourselves out to this idea of like, oh, there's going to be this day when I do X, Y, Z, when all this, that I'm finally going to feel good all the time. But I've just subscribed to the idea that like, oh, I'm uncomfortable right now. I'm feeling a little anxious. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. This is just that other 50%. Nothing has gone wrong. Therefore, I don't need to solve it by getting out of discomfort with, overeating, over drinking, over shopping, over working, whatever that is.
Because those are actually reactionary actions.
Yeah, they numb the feeling of discomfort. Right. Like think about feelings. Yeah, in the moment, and they don't deal with the stress. If you think about feeling uncomfortable, and then you go and you grab a bowl of ice cream, heck yeah, that discomfort goes away. But I think of it as net negative pleasure. Yeah, you get a super hit of pleasure from the ice cream, but what's the downside? I know I have clients that get headaches from stuff like that. I have clients that get bloated. I have clients that feel bad, like now, like just moving away from where I wanted to go with my health. Like, why did I do that? Beating themselves up, net negative pleasure. And so I'm always looking, what are the things I can bring in that have net positive pleasure? Meaning like, think about this.
Yeah, I was going to say, give us an example of that.
Yeah, going for a walk.
Yeah.
It's not this huge hit of like, yeah, I feel amazing right now. It's subtle, but it has no negative downside. Like you end up a little bit. Or think about a workout.
You do. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Right? Or but think about this. You eat a really healthy lunch and you're like, how there's that little bit of like, I did that. I'm being healthy. There's that little bit of thing in our head. It's just like, look at me go. Net positive pleasures. And so that's kind of why I look at like, am I choosing short-term thinking or long-term thinking? Am I getting net negative, net positive? Beautiful thing is that can all tie back to REM sleep. REM sleep makes it easier to make those choices.
Okay, fine. So you come back to the REM sleep thing and you say, again, there is no specific amount of hours we need to sleep to get there.
Yeah, my husband, it frustrates me because I'm not that, but he can get 6.5 hours of sleep per night and obliterate the quality that I get in 8. There are just more efficient sleepers than other people. A lot of it has to do with how you prep your brain before sleep. There's a genetic component to it. But like I said, there's not one shoe fits all. I think you just really have to know your data and able to make decisions, and then butting that up against subjective life. How are you feeling? Do you feel there's
Okay. So I like what you just said about the data, and I know we
Mhm.
before we got on air, we talked about the data as well.
Mhm.
And that's something that I've actually brought up with my clients in the past, and because one thing that we do is we track a lot of the data
Yeah.
for the activities that we're doing in a day. We call them IPAs, income producing activities, but there's also going to be the actions towards the results that we want. For example, if you said to me, hey, I want to lose weight or I want to be in better shape, I go, what's the action? The action could be going for that walk. It could be eating, a healthier meal. It could be going to the gym more often, right? So we've got to action those items. And so we track everything. And as we track things, we get, again, a week, a month, a day, different order, but day, week, month, year later, we're able to look backwards on the data now and say, hey, this is why things worked, and this is also showing us why things didn't work.
Mhm.
And as we move forward, let's make sure that we pay attention to the data to understand what worked, what didn't work, and where can we improve.
Yeah.
So to the REM sleep thing, and to bringing up that ring, because I know we had a question in our private chat there that was saying, where can I get it? We put the link in there. Is that one way that you would say, in order to pay attention to whether or not you're getting enough REM sleep,
Mhm.
is to somehow get something like a wearable that can help you track that data to see if you're even sleeping properly at nighttime?
Yeah, for sure. I would, and when it comes to like, there's a lot of wearable trackers out there, and I will say
Yep.
this: Fitbits, Apple Watches, things on your wrist are usually designed as activity trackers, right? And I'm not affiliated with Aura.
Yep.
I send them all to my clients. That's how much I love them. So these are designed to be rest and recovery trackers. They are complementary. Like I have a Fitbit on and I also have a ring and they talk to each other. They send data back and forth. So when I'm always looking at like, okay, I use it to think about this return on investment. You know how you talked about the inputs are what matter? The inputs, like there's the goal, but the important thing to focus on are like the day-to-day inputs, the daily
Yep.
activities you need to
Yep.
do. I always use those to then gauge the return on investment of my time with my health relative to the data. Because there's so many health things we could be doing. There's a
Makes
billion
sense.
diets, there's all these things. Like, how do
Yep.
you know where to spend your time? And I find by having data, it's just like if you wanted to do outreach messages, if you wanted to do cold call, whatever it is that's your strategy, like if you know what the inputs are that get the biggest return, that's where you focus your time with your health. And I feel like a lot of us get so overwhelmed with like, I've got so much to do. And the idea of like prioritizing your health seems like this huge demanding task. And you're like, I don't even know where I would fit all of this. But I think what we have as what we should do is what is painted by the internet and has nothing to do with what works for us and what is optimized for us. Because I'm going to tell you, like, I have been teaching fitness and personal training since 2008, long time now. And I
Mm-hmm.
used to believe like it's 1 hour workouts a week, like the whole thing. And I have now seen through data that my body thrives on 3 to 4 30-minute workouts per week.
As
And
opposed to, right.
that is about how it affects my sleep. Because if you are not sleeping well, your workouts are like not even effective because all of the recovery you do is during deep sleep. And if you want your workouts to be effective, you prioritize that deep sleep. And so I'm looking at like, how is my sleep being affected? How is my meals being affected? How is my energy being affected? How this tracks daytime stress levels. Like, am I more stressed out, my body, the physical experience of stress when I'm working out this much or this much? It just gives you information to make decisions on.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So with all of that, then, and we know that like our audience, and I think both of our audiences, entrepreneurs, salespeople,
Mhm,
busy lifestyles,
mhm,
time is always of the essence.
mhm.
How much emphasis do you put on scheduling?
So are you talking about like day-to-day calendar scheduling? Or are you talking about scheduling of the health stuff?
I'd say day-to-day scheduling, which it would encompass the health stuff. So again, I'll come back to
Mhm,
that example of work-life balance,
mhm,
right? I
mhm,
believe that most people get up every day, check their socials, check their emails, spend time
mhm,
focused on everybody
mhm.
else, reactionary to the world around them, and then look themselves in the mirror and they're not happy with who they see or what they see
Yeah, here's
or
how
how
that
they
comes in.
feel.
Yeah, here's how that comes into play, I find, is when we go to implement health habits. And I'll first address that, like, I think what most of us do wrong when it comes to our health is we do this. Oh gosh, I feel so terrible. I haven't been, focused on my work stuff. I haven't been exercising properly. So here's what I'm going to do. January 1st is coming up. And you know what's sexy about this January 1st? It's the first day of the year on a Monday.
Oh,
and
is
the
it?
first day
Oh
of the
my
month.
goodness.
Like I've had clients that are like, "Yay!" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's just another case of the Mondays." But I'll say, like, here's what I noticed: we make this big plan that has all of these elements. You have 5 workouts a week. You're gonna sleep 7.5 hours a night. You're gonna change your whole diet. You're gonna start meditating or whatever. And we get these big, sexy plans, and then we go to implement them. And then all of a sudden, we got a flurry of new, leads come in, and we have to address that. And we just don't have time to do all this. And so we drop it all, tell ourselves, "Oh, I'm terrible. I can't stick with this. I've never been able to do this. What's wrong with me? I've always been like this." We tell ourselves this, and it feels so terrible. So we get out of terrible by making a new sexy plan. And it gives us that dopamine hit of like, this is the time, let's go. And we
Yep.
get that dopamine hit, never really understanding that the whole problem in the first place is that you didn't build something that was sustainable. So I'm a huge fan of like slowing people down and being like, okay, you know what? No. Focus on breakfast. I get that you want to overhaul your food, but right now, if you just did breakfast for a whole year, would you be better off than if you did it all for a month and then quit for 11 months? And the answer is always yes. And so building in one layer at a time. But then to come back and circle back to what you asked earlier about the scheduling, heck yeah, it's important, because you want to know why most people, in my experience, my clients are staying up too late? It's because they have this sentence in their brain. It sounds like this: I didn't get enough done today.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them this: "Oh, interesting. How much was enough?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, no. Well, I mean, you're telling me you didn't get enough done. So you must have had an idea of what enough was and you didn't reach it, right? And they're like, "Well, I've got this to-do list." I was like, "But did you really expect to get that list?" I mean, entrepreneurs, there's no end to the projects we have. We're not slowing down anytime soon. So I always say to them, I'm like, okay, here's your job. You are going to pick what you're actually going to get done that day and do it. So when you get to the end of it, you got what you said you were going to do done. Because I think where we go wrong is we have these, 50 item to-do lists, and we know we don't get to the end of it naturally. And then we're like, I should have done more. I could have done more. What's wrong with me? And then we have this whole spiral out and end up, skipping all our health habits to move forward. So I like to, how much is enough? Define that so that you can actually say, I got enough done or not. And then the sneaky thing I like to do is I like to insert something into my schedule called sliding blocks. And sliding blocks, and this, I get pushback on this, but I'll tell you why this works.
What
And
are
everyone,
sliding blocks?
yeah, everyone who's adopted this loves it. So sliding blocks are intentionally empty blocks of time in my day. So if I have an 8-hour day scheduled out, I am going to leave an hour empty. And people are like, "But that's ridiculous. I could get stuff done during that." I'm like, "Sure, I believe you." How many times, though, have you had a contract come in that took you away from what you were focused on because you had to get that done? Or you had a kid sick and you had to stop and go and deal with that, or the dog threw up, or whatever it is, right? It's building in time for what is naturally going to happen anyways, but then you don't get behind. You have time to slide all of those tasks that got bumped into. So now you are still finishing your day. And the great thing is, if your day goes perfectly and you have no unexpected tasks, perfect. Start working on tomorrow. Start working off that bigger list. The time would have gone how it went anyways. It's just, do you want to be stressed about it, or do you want to feel like, thank God I had some backup time?
Listen, you're talking my language beautifully right there. When I say, we teach a process called mapping. And mapping is exactly what you just mentioned there. It's looking and going. It can't be a to-do list, because that to-do list will never stop, right? It's a matter of looking at, what is it that I need to get done? Why do I feel I need to get that done? And what is that tiny little, incremental piece that I can get done today to get me closer to, let's say, completion, right? Love the idea of what you call sliding blocks, because I think that does really, especially for entrepreneurs, that really does assist with moving that schedule around. I call, a lot of times I say to people, find your rhythm, right? When I tell you that, I'm going to check my email at 9:00 in the morning, it doesn't mean you should be checking your email at 9:00 in the morning. Your lifestyle and what you've got to do might be different than what I have to do. At some point that action needs to be done, but when? Where in your schedule? How much time are you spending? How are you actioning it? Right? So I love what you brought up there, and I'm with you, but it also says to me that you do put emphasis on scheduling.
Yep. There's a whole
Right?
module in it on how to figure out your time. And also like that so much of, I think, what our time struggles are with are, we come back to this, sentences. Like, think about this. You might be let's say you're the most productive person in the world. You get the most done per unit of time. And your brain says, I didn't get enough done. It doesn't matter. You are going to feel anxious, behind, overwhelmed. You are constantly going to feel lack, like you're not doing enough. Like I've always been of the idea of like, I want to think I am always, this is exactly what I need to get done. This is exactly what I was supposed to get done. Like so much I think of the way our brain talks about what we did get done, didn't get done is what causes all the suffering. And I think there's like a legitimate thing for like, okay, this is the way my brain is going to think about this. And this is how I feel. I think the suffering that we create in our brain is totally optional. Like I'm never going to choose to think I'm behind because I know I'm performing at excellence. I'm doing what I need to get done. And why would I choose to tell myself it's not enough? Why not just raise my standards and meet those and then be happy with that? Like it's just created
It's
so much
mindset, it's discipline, right? It's a big one. You've got 12 protocols to becoming limitless. I imagine sleep is a big part of that.
Definitely.
Personally, I can't get enough done while I'm sleeping, but that's a whole different thing. But before we get into those, and I don't know that you want to go into all 12 full detail. I believe you probably have a course that you sell on this stuff and you teach people this stuff. So it's a much longer thing than to be able to get into today. But before I even get to that, I wanted to ask you, what is biohacking?
Oh, isn't that fun? So don't go Google it because you're going to find some like far end of the scale stuff about people like, I'm going to live till 180 and I'm injecting myself with my son's blood. Like it's all out there. Like it really is. So don't Google it. What it basically means is I'm making changes to my external environment, my work environment, my sleep, bedroom environment, those kind of things, and my internal environment, what I eat, how I sleep, making changes to those things with the goal of longevity, clarity, energy, focus, of feeling my best and using wearable technology to make it an experiment of one. I'm putting in places hacks to enhance my own biology so that I can be the best version of me.
I like that.
Difference really
Simple.
is. Yeah, biohacking uses a lot more like tech and stuff like that than
Yeah,
just a regular health.
I love the simplification of that, and I think that for everybody that like fully just taking that right down to the blunt, bare simple, it's like you're tracking you, right? You
Mhm.
figure out what you do, what are your habits, what are you doing, how are you operating, and then be able to look at that and say, how can you make a better version of you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's leaning on
Okay,
science. That's the
okay,
fun thing.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
no, love
leaning on
that.
science.
Okay, so 12 protocols then.
Mhm.
I don't know if you want to list out what they are, or maybe just high level this thing. Like I was going to say to them, like, what are they? Why do they
Yeah.
matter? Why should we implement them? How do we implement them? But I know we don't have enough time for that today.
Yeah. Overview? Overview.
Give us something, because
So
I know it's a big thing that you teach on. You've obviously got the Becoming Limitless podcast, which I also want to give a shout out to. So I want to tell everybody, tune in. So far, I've been enjoying the conversation. I think there's a lot more to learn from you on this. But yeah, 12 protocols.
Yeah, so they're divided into three main sections. One, I call the CEO Sleep Lab. And so the first 5 protocols are wrapped into this. So think about things like this. A whole protocol is learning how to use data to track yourself. That's one.
Okay. Yep.
Then we're looking at, okay, sleep duration and timing. Because we have a body clock inside of us that actually, if we are able to tune into this body clock, everything in our life gets smoother because our whole body functions on a clock. Our hormones, our body temperature, our heart rate. So if we can optimize this clock, everything goes better from our energy, our focus, all of that. Then we're looking at quality of sleep, deep and REM. What can we do to enhance that? We're looking at things like biohacking our bedroom. What are the changes you can make to your environment? So that's what we bundle up in the CEO Sleep Lab. Like each of those get protocols. Then we move into something called brain food because our food affects our brain fog and our clarity to such a degree. So we talk about things like, okay, your protocol creation. How is it that we are going to eat? Understanding blood sugar, meaning like what affects blood sugar? How does that, affect our brain fog? And then beyond that, we go into actually eating for energy. So what are the things we need to focus on eating to make sure that we feel the way we want to feel? Lastly, we shift into the last 4 protocols are on resilience. So I love to think like, listen, we're not getting out of stress anytime soon. It's like we signed up. This is part of what we signed up for. So my job is how can I be resilient to it and increase my capacity? It's like if you do a bicep curl and at the beginning you can only do 20 and then you build and you get stronger and you practice and now you can do a 30-pound dumbbell. You have built the resilience of that muscle. So I'm looking at how can we increase your capacity to tolerate stress without breakdown, physical breakdown, mental breakdown, emotional breakdown. And I do that a couple ways. I do that through exercise. That's a huge one, focusing on what is optimal with our time, with our just energy. We look at what I call the limitless mind. And so that's understanding the conversations we have in our brain, how they affect our results, how they affect our feelings. Then we look at things like, have you ever heard of heart rate variability? No.
I don't think so, but I get it.
Yeah, it's a metric that you can track that tells you if your body is in fight or flight or rest and digest, and how the balance between those is. Is there ebb and flow, or are you stuck in fight or flight? So it's literally looking at how can we build your capacity for stress so that you don't get taken down, you don't get sick every time you get
Makes
stressed out.
sense. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
And
Yep.
the very last one is all on focus and flow. That's where the whole thing is on like calendaring and understanding your schedule and getting into flow and what does the office environment look like.
You guys all hear that? She just said calendaring. I told you. Told you. No, look, there's a lot of that there. I mean, the heart rate variability is not something that I touch on. Not something I've worked on, but again, scheduling that physical and that mental part of the personal part of life, all of those things to me, and I know for myself, even over the years, the transformational change comes from that. It comes from within. And if you want things outside to change, you got to change inside first.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we're really talking the same language here today.
I agree with you. You know, it's funny. I heard Alex Hormozy say something. You know how Alex Hormozy?
Yep.
Yeah, I heard him say something the other day that like, if you go to describe a healthy person, what do you describe? They go to the gym. They eat healthy. It's all the things they do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so to your point, like you put what you need to do on your calendar and then you get good at sitting in discomfort and honoring your calendar.
That's it.
You can't lose, especially when you can be in the discomfort of being like, why isn't this working? What am I doing that's not working? What am I doing that is working? If you can pair that with evaluation, like that is a level of like becoming limitless. No pun intended.
No, it's true though. It's true. But
Yeah,
even when you brought up like when you eat that proper meal, you feel better. Right?
Yeah.
Like no joke. There's times where like I'll floss my teeth and like you feel better.
You're like,
Right? Because
yes,
you just know you should be doing that. It's like proper like dental care, right? But I'm with you. It's tiny little actions. Now, as we talk about that, again, to me, the foundation of that really is about understanding what it is that you want. What is that vision? And in business, we talk a lot about setting goals. Most often, and you've already alluded to this, everybody writes it down and gets all excited. Yeah. And I know a lot of people think about them and not write them down, which means that they're never going to achieve them. But people will always start off with how much money they want to make, how many deals they want to do. And I always suggest, as we've been talking about today, start off with the personal, right? How many workouts do you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
How much weight? Like how much do you want to weigh? How many date nights? How many vacations? How many books do you want to read? Like start there. And people are like, oh, but I want to start with my money. And no. You see, if you are not good, you cannot go and make all that money. You cannot operate at the peak performance that you need to operate at to go and do everything you want. And then you're just being torn down.
Yeah.
So I always go with that, babe. And I guess I kind of know the answer to this based on our conversation already today, but what is your take on goal setting when it comes to truly making the change that you want to see in yourself? And I might double down with that, Tanessa, and say, why do most people, okay, and I always use that term most people, because like most people don't do all the good stuff we're talking about, but why do most people lose the motivation within sort of that 6 to 8 week time frame after they start with a new routine? And what would you suggest that people do about it? Because we are at a very pivotal time right now in the year where we're about to come into a new year, right? 11 days from the day we're recording this show. I'm saying to everybody right now, and I throw it out there to scare the shit out of everybody listening, but like, so 11 days from this show, so I'd say in about, 55, call it 60 days, 80% of people will have given up.
Yeah, February 12th, Quitter's Day.
Right? So what's your take on goal setting and what might you suggest to people that they can do so that they're not going to be most people?
Yeah, I think relying on motivation to do anything is the worst thing you could do. Motivation is short-lived. It only lasts at the beginning. Motivation is highest when something is new. As something is not new, you're getting into what I call the middles of it. The newness and the excitement wears off. And instead of sticking course and doing what you're supposed to be doing, we start screwing with it and like adding something new till we can feel excited and motivated again. And then we rely on feeling motivated to do the thing. We rely on an emotion And when it doesn't show up, we give up instead of deciding that like motivation only takes us so far. Discipline carries us the rest of the way. Discipline on in itself doesn't always feel good. And I think so many people wait to feel good to do it. And keep in mind, I told you how long I've been doing this fitness thing, right?
Yep.
Half the time, I don't feel like working out. I want to quit and not show up half the time at minimum. And if every time I didn't feel like doing it, if I didn't show up, what kind of example would I be for my clients? I don't require of myself to feel like it or feel anything for that matter to execute. And so I think it's really understanding, like, if you are waiting for a motivation, you can guarantee you're going to fail. You can either look at that route and then decide that I don't need to feel motivation. It'd be nice, but if I don't feel it, I act anyways. Or you go to work to generate it yourself. Because remember how we talked about like so much of our experience and how we feel comes from what goes on in our head all day long?
Yep.
What if it's our job to generate? If you want to feel motivated, how do you generate it? What does your thinking sound like? What do you repeat to yourself? What do you say to yourself? What do you review? Are you reviewing your goals every day? Are you thinking about the consequences of not doing it? I don't think most people think of feeling exhausted, drained, 4 p.m., don't have the energy to be present with their kids, like checked out of their life, can't stop thinking about work, overwhelmed, exhausted. They're not thinking about that when it's 7 a.m. in the morning and they don't feel motivated to get out of bed and go work out. Right. So I think it's really just like your job and your personal responsibility is to create whatever emotion you think it's going to take to get you out of bed in the morning, and taking that on as responsibility of your job instead of sitting around and waiting for motivation to happen to you. I think that's where most of us go wrong.
You know, and again, and I agree with you on that. And I love the way you presented that. I presented it slightly differently. We both get to the exact same point though, because I'll tell you, going to the gym and I go regularly. Yeah, there's a lot of days where I don't feel like it. Then I leave the gym. I'm like, yeah, that felt good, right? Making prospecting calls. There's a lot of days where, and I'll tell you, like, and I teach people to do them. I teach people how to do them. I will still procrastinate before I pick up that phone, and all of a sudden I get rolling, and I'm like, give me more, right? So there is no specific motivation. Moreover, I might say, well, it is that desire to win. It's that desire to get the results. Well, again, how do we track the results? It cannot be a big to-do list. It has to be actioned. And that's where, again, I bring back the idea of mapping around the goals, the scheduling, the tracking of what we're accomplishing, because I do believe that if you can give yourself a little bit of a pat on the back every 30 to 60 minutes throughout your day, and it may not be a physical pat on the back, but it might be a checking off that you just accomplished those 5 phone calls, or you did that 30 or 60-minute workout, or you read your book for 30 minutes, check it off. Recognize that you did it. And the more you do it, the more you persevere through it, the easier it does become.
Yeah, it's compounding, right?
Yeah. Okay. So we're there. Now we brought up holiday season. We brought up sort of as we're getting to the new year. What's the biggest, I'm going to see if I pose this the right way, but what's the biggest factor that people should be paying attention to this holiday season that will impact how they start their new year, and what should they be doing to mitigate that? I did see a post that you posted recently. I'll kind of throw this in there. It talked about alcohol. It talked about feeling stressed. And I thought that this fitting for the time of the year that we're in right now, to give everybody sort of some words of encouragement that they should again be paying attention to as we go through this holiday season.
Yeah, I like to hit the ground running in the new year. I don't want to just be waking up and then deciding what I want the year to look like.
Oh, I'm already hitting the ground running. Like my new year already started, right? And like I call it an unfair advantage, but like it's totally fair because nobody said you're not allowed to do it.
Right. Yeah. Whereas like most of the world is taking this month off.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not about like, I need to get ahead. It's not an ego thing. It's just like I have high standards. And so we're hitting the ground running this year. But to go back to that post that you were talking about that I put up on the alcohol overwhelm loop.
Yep.
It's this, most people don't recognize that this is what it is. So we have these like stressed out days where we're, in our head, you didn't do enough. Like, what's wrong with you? This isn't working. Is this ever going to work? Whatever it is. We get to the end of the day and you're feeling really overwhelmed. And so you're just like, I'm just going to check out glass of wine, couple beer, whatever it is. But what most people don't know is that alcohol is one of the single biggest impactors of REM sleep. And it's got a multi-day recovery. It not only impacts and decreases REM sleep, which is, remember, responsible for our ability to read body gestures, solve problems, think out of the box, emotions, all of that. Not only does it do that, it suppresses that. Remember, we brought up HRV, heart rate variability?
Yep.
So our body stays in low grade fight or flight for 3 to 4 days. Now you add on top of that the stresses of running a business, of having kids, of you said you're driving your kids everywhere. There's always something going on. You add all of these things up, you're in this perpetual state of overwhelm. You're also missing sleep, you're all the REM, and then you wake up one step behind the day before. You're already waking up, your sleep wasn't quality, you're not able to manage your emotions. Somebody says something to you, you're irritable, you're like, crap, I got to deal with that. And so what do? You get to the end of the day and you unwind with a glass of wine. And so I just love this idea of how can we find, and this is me also saying, if you want to drink, that's your thing. This is how I do me and my relationship with alcohol is, like I said, I lean into discomfort. And for me, alcohol, when I used to drink, I've been sober for about 5 years now. When I used to drink, it was always as a way to escape discomfort. And like I said, the more often I can be in discomfort, the better my life gets because I'm moving forward. I'm taking on challenges. So I didn't want to numb those opportunities for greatness.
Okay. Cool. No, I like that. I like that. Because again, as I'm asking sort of what should everybody be paying attention to, just, I think it's a nice way to sort of tail off here because it leaves everybody thinking again, you know, we're in holiday season, we're in relax mode, and we know that we've got, you know, what I call a big measuring stick ahead of us coming in 11 days from now, right? Where Jan 1 starts and we've got 365 days to, again, just measure ourselves and be able to say, hey, what did I accomplish? What did I not accomplish? Where did I win? Where did I not win? What did I learn? How can I do better the following year in 2025? Mm-hmm. And, you know, what we do in these next 11 days from what we're understanding here today is going to significantly impact what happens on January 1st and how that year begins, right?
Yeah, that's why I like to start off jumping in a Canadian lake January 1.
Yeah, well, not to Canada, eh?
If you want to get discomfort on the first day of the year, that's my favorite thing to do. I'm like, let's go. Let's get as uncomfortable as we physically can. First day of the year.
So tell me, the day is over for you. You've wrapped up your entire day. You're going to lay your head down at night. How do you know it's been a successful day for you?
Because I decided it was.
Oh, that was quick.
Yeah. I mean, why would you want to choose anything different?
I like that. Nice and simple.
Yeah.
I will say, we've asked that question 262 times on this show, and not a single person ever brings up the word money.
Oh, right.
So we're still batting 1,000, and I think
that's how they think. It's how they feel, right? It's a decision. It's a thought. It's a feeling.
Tanessa, any final words that you want to share with anybody today? Where can they reach you? Where they can find you, follow you, you name it. Give us something to sort of sail off into the sunset for 2023.
Yeah. So maybe something to chew on is this idea of, we'll come back to possibility. If you could get your brain working 10% better, 20% better, what could be possible for you? Your clarity, your ability to answer objections, speak with your clients. What could be different if your brain worked better, faster, stronger? And now is there place for that in your schedule? And making sure that you're keeping your brain's the best asset you have in your business. Nothing else matters if your brain is not performing. So I treat it like that. It's my priority. But yeah, beyond that, I've gathered, I took 12 different biohacks that I have found across the board are pretty easy to implement, straightforward, put them in a playbook called 12 Ways to Biohack Your Energy. It's all about having productive mornings and high efficient energy days. That's on my website, TanessaShears.com. The little freebies tab at the top. You click there, get there. Fun thing is, every hack comes with a podcast episode on my show if you want to dive deep. And I don't gatekeep information. You get what it is, how to implement it, all the stuff you need to know. But beyond that, I'm on Instagram. I'm active on there. I'm social on there. It's at Tanessa Shears. Come say hi, drop me a DM. Let me know what you found interesting. I always like to, meet the community and see what's going on.
Very cool. Very cool. Tanessa, it's been a pleasure. A fun conversation, a lightning conversation. Definitely a great way to sort of finish off the year and move into 2024. So I hope everybody takes her advice. Go follow her on Instagram, check out the website, get those freebies, maybe sign up for the course, listen to the podcast, all of the above. I've enjoyed this. It's been an awesome convo, right up my alley for sure. All that being said, I want to thank you for joining us today on the show. Pleasure having you, and I wish you and your family all the best for this upcoming holiday season, and nothing but the best for 2024.
Oh, thanks. Same back to you.
Talk to you soon. You are either watching us live, maybe you're on one of your favorite podcast platforms, maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com, and while you are there, be sure to download your free copy of my book, The Ultimate Marketing Bundle, our 31-page ebook, including your free 90-day social media content calendar to help you build more mind share so that you get more market share. A reminder as well that if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching and in-person keynote talk for your upcoming event and or ongoing virtual training, just get in touch with my team. We'll set up a consultation call, learn more about what you're looking to achieve and how we will help you do just that. Of course, for all inquiries, just get in touch with us across any platform. We're not hard to find. Don't forget to leave us a review at ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Again, a really quick, simple way to either get off to Spotify or iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You know, as we always say, a big 5 stars, a nice little great review would be super awesome. And we're grateful that you tuned in today. Of course, don't forget to connect with me on Facebook at MindShare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. I want to take a quick moment here to thank Kits Keep in Touch Systems as well as REM Real Estate Magazine for sponsoring this episode of the MindShare podcast. Be sure to visit our site to learn more about these powerful companies will do to help you grow your business. This has been another episode of the MindShare podcast. Thank you for tuning in.